Hello. It has been a while, I know. I believe it has been at least 6 months since the last video I posted, which means in turn that it has been at least 6 months since the last book that I finished. So don't come for me. I know life gets in the way sometimes. It is what it is. Also, please excuse me messing with my hair. I did not do anything to it. This is just like my natural hair, and I now have regrets. I should have like straightened it or something. But here we are. We're already here. Let's just move on. So the beginning of the year is the busiest time for me at work. Don't mind Percy popping in. So I didn't have much time. I still continued to read a little bit before bed each evening, but with the book I was reading, which you already know by the title of this video, this was a thick book. It doesn't go quickly, so my little attempts to read before bed, while well-intentioned, and while they did get me, you know, through it eventually, it was not a quick process, and that is okay. So I had intentions of reading a lot more books this year. I don't think I should beat myself up about reading one extremely thick book versus like if I'd read multiple smaller books. It's a little silly to count it in that way. I think the goal at the end of the day is just to continue reading and not fall out of the habit, which I managed to do. So we are all good. We are back, and we're ready to talk about it. So I finished Deadhouse Gates, which is, I always mess up the title of the series. I always just want to call it the Gardens of the Moon series, which is just the name of the first book. But the Tale of the Malazan, Book of the Fallen, that's the actual like series name, I believe, by Steven Erikson, who I discussed previously. So I did do like a review on the first book of the series, and definitely stand by what I said in that it's kind of like I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not reading these books back to back. I don't want to get burnt out on the series. I also want to allow myself the flexibility to read other books. If I find something else piques my interest, then I will go for that, and I will read it, you know, in between reading these books. So it won't be another like 7 months before I finish a book. I have actually started in on my next book. I'm reading The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, so that will be super awesome, and it'll be a fun change of pace, and a lot shorter. So we'll get through that one a lot faster, I am sure. But on to this one. So the quick version, the spoiler-free quick consensus. If you were unsure of continuing the series, maybe you read the first book and you're like, I don't know, I liked it, but it is a big commitment, I'm here to tell you that you need to read this. But I'm also here to tell you that it might take you a long time, and that's okay. So if you don't want spoilers, then this is probably the time to click away. It was nice having you, nice to meet you. See ya. So let's talk about this book. I had nothing but good things to say about the first book of this series, primarily because of the world building, and I stand by that. Steven Erikson has continued to show that he is a master of the craft. He knows what he's doing. He's very, I'm trying to think of the correct word to describe his ability. It's almost, I mean, books are, right? It's like it's an art. There is an art to it, even if people don't necessarily think of them in that way all the time. There's definitely an art to world building, and he is a master at that craft. So one of the things that impressed me most about this book is how he was still able to draw you in to the characters in the world and what's going on and make you care, despite it being completely different characters from the first book. There is some overlap, there are references to the things that happened in the first book. It's not like it's completely separate, but you are following a lot of new characters that you didn't know previously, and he's very quickly able to make you invested in them the same way that he did the characters of the first book. And I can see where it's gonna kind of come back together later on in the series, and I think that's really awesome. One of the things that I appreciate most in a longer series is being able to tell that it was thought out from the beginning. So being able to see those things that were hinted at in book 1, book 2 come full circle and like come to fruition in books like 4 and 5, I think is super awesome. It just shows that there was thought that went into it. It wasn't just thrown together, and that's something that I, as a reader, really appreciate, because it brings a sense of satisfaction that you just can't get otherwise. So from that standpoint, we're not fully there yet, in terms of like book 1 versus book 2 and like vast overarching themes, but I think it's coming. I can see, you know, the strings kind of being pulled together, and I think that's super awesome. Another thing I will say about this book is that, to that same idea, this is like my number one thing that makes this a must read for me, and it is that halfway through this book, I will be honest, I was a little unsure. I've always heard that books 2 for sure, and I think 3 is the other one, are like the best in the series, that they are just fantastic, that the rest of the series is obviously still very good, but that those 2 are like standouts, and I didn't see it halfway through. So I guess we'll start with my biggest complaint, and then we'll segue into my biggest praise. So my biggest complaint with this book is not even necessarily the book's fault, if we're being honest. Take some personal responsibility here. I read it over such a long period of time, and I read it in such short, choppy sections because I just didn't have time, that it started to feel a little bit disconnected for me. I don't think it was the writing itself that was making that happen. I think it's just that whenever you have so many perspectives you're swapping between, there's so many characters that had seemingly very independent stories, I would catch myself kind of forgetting where we were at with one person while we were over with another, and then when we'd swap back, I was like, oh shoot, like where are we even at? Like what has even happened? I don't remember. And as I said, that's very much a product of me reading such small sections over such a long period of time. So if I spent like a week or 2 with one character just reading choppy sections of their story and then swap back to another character, I was getting whiplash from it. I was like, oh, what happened here? Where are we at? Like, I remember this one thing, but that doesn't seem like it's where we're at anymore. What I forget, what I miss. So that's something that was a little difficult for me. It did make it a little bit frustrating reading at times. But as I said, I don't think you'd have that problem if you had more time to dedicate to read larger sections more frequently than I did, because reading, you know, a little section that's only like a page and a half each night before bed, you don't make progress very quickly. So that is one complaint of mine. It felt like there were a lot of storylines going on, and they did feel very disconnected for a good portion of the book. But what that leads me to is something that was done so well, which is, I don't think I've ever read a book with so much going on, so many characters, with so many distinct storylines that are like, when I say distinct, I mean like distinct. Like, you have one dude on a boat, someone else is in a desert, like very different storylines. And the way they all came together at the end of the book is insane. And I will say, the other thing that I really enjoyed was, I enjoyed all of the storylines, but Coltane's in particular, with all the refugees and the battles, and they are just so good, and it's heartbreaking at the end. I suppose I said we're into spoiler territory. I still hesitate to say spoilers even even after like kind of disclosing that I will. I just get a little nervous. Coltane's death. Ugh, that hurt. But Diger's death hurt more, I think. And it just, the way that all of that played out was, as I said, heartbreaking, but also infuriating at the same time. And then the way everything pulled together with, I'm gonna say names wrong, you just gotta let it be, because not listening to the audiobook, I'm not 100% sure on pronunciations. I always struggle with that, so I'm just saying it up front. I know, and I'm sorry. Felison, now I guess Shaik, if that's how you say it, showing up after that, and then Mappo, and wow, I am blanking so hard. His companion, ending up also outside of Aaron. It's just the way everything pulls together at the end and kind of comes full circle, bringing all the storylines like kind of into the same place, is so good. And that really kind of made it worth it for me, having to keep track of all the separate ones that felt, as I said, so separate. And so distinct, and still having that all pull together with this like one location where there's just so much tragedy, it's really amazing. So that's something that I think Erikson did just a superb job with. It's really cool to read and kind of see those things pulled together, and as I said, that's something that I always tend to want from books and stories like this, and I don't often actually get in a satisfying, well done way. So there's my little spiel about praise and how worth it is to actually finish the book, because you wouldn't get that if you didn't finish the book. Which I guess if you're on book 2 of a long series like this, you're probably someone who's gonna finish it, I hope. But you know, life happens, life gets in the way, and sometimes we don't, and I'm just here to tell you that you need to finish the book. So with that being said, I am looking forward to the next one in the series. I'm excited to see what characters we follow there, if it's characters from the first 2 books or if it's another new set of characters. I would expect you can only have so many new sets of characters. But then again, it's a big world he's built, so who really knows? We'll find out soon enough. But as I said, I am going to read a few other books in the meantime before I jump back into the Malazan series, because there is a lot going on with it, and they are long. I think the next book might actually be longer than this book, so I need to mentally prepare for that before I jump in and try to make sure that I have the time to sit down and make sure that I properly enjoy it. But anywho, thank you for watching, listening to me ramble. I just love talking about books, so here we are. But you know, let me know if you agree down below, or if there were any points that you disagree with. I'd love to talk about it. And yeah, I think that's it. Bye guys.